My name's Brent McAllister. I lay roofing for a living. Not the shingle kind like folks put on their houses. I do commercial work. Flat roofs, hot asphalt, industrial-grade stuff. Not glamorous, not clean, but it pays the bills. Actually, it's paid for a lot more than they think. I sat at the end of the table like I always did. Same chair, same view of the chipped salt shaker, and same silence. Sunday lunch at my parents' house hadn't changed since high school. Except now, I was the one everyone tried not to look at too long. My brother Evan was halfway through a story about some VP at his firm when he glanced at me and said, "You know, Brent, maybe it's time you stopped showing up in your roofing boots." He laughed, but it wasn't the funny kind. I looked down. Yeah, the boots were stained with black tar. I'd come straight from a quick patch job for a diner across town. They had a leak. I had a ladder. Before I could say anything, his wife chimed in. "I told Evan we should help you out. Maybe get you into something more stable. Roofing is what it is, but it's not exactly a long-term plan, is it?" She sipped her wine like she just blessed me with insight. My fork scraped the plate. Across from me, my mother gave me that tight-lipped smile she always used when the room got uncomfortable. My dad didn't say a word, just kept cutting into his roast beef like he was trying to disappear inside it. I wanted to answer, tell them I had 7 employees, that I just landed a contract with a regional logistics center, that my week started at 4 a.m. and ended on Sunday right before I showed up here to be told I was an embarrassment. But I didn't. I just said, "I like what I do." That was it. Evan leaned back. "Well, you've always been stubborn, but come on, Brent, you're a McAllister. Don't you think it's time you started acting like one?" That one stung more than I let on. Like roofing made me less of a McAllister. Like being covered in asphalt and sweat made me invisible. After dessert, I helped Mom with the dishes like I always did. She didn't say much, but just before I left, she touched my shoulder and said, "Maybe they just don't understand your world." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I understood theirs anymore either. Outside, I walked past Evan's car, a sleek new Tesla he'd mentioned at least 3 times during lunch. My truck was parked down the block, not because I was embarrassed, but because I didn't want to give them another reason to talk. On the drive home, I replayed the lunch in my head. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. They didn't see me. They saw my job, my boots, my silence. But they hadn't seen the new bid I'd won last week, the renovated property behind my house, the concrete pad I'd poured myself, the plans, the permits, the future I was building, one rooftop at a time. They hadn't seen it. Yet. I didn't start out with much. Just a secondhand pickup, 2 buckets of liquid asphalt, and a borrowed torch. I didn't even have a business name, just a reputation that hadn't been built yet. My first job was sealing the roof of a rundown bakery on the edge of town. Mrs. Harper, the owner, paid me in cash and leftover cinnamon rolls. I remember driving home that night, windows down, hands aching from the heat, thinking, maybe I could make this work. I didn't have employees. I didn't even have backup. Just me, a ladder, and the will to outwork anyone else who thought this kind of job wasn't worth doing. I didn't know much about business, but I knew how to show up on time, how to say yes ma'am and no sir, and how to leave a roof that wouldn't leak when it rained. And that was enough for a while. Word spread. Slowly at first. The gas station owner called, then a mechanic shop, then the little storage facility off Route 12. I said yes to all of it, even when I didn't know how to do something yet. I learned fast, worked nights, watched tutorials between jobs, burned through 3 pairs of gloves in 2 months. I still remember the first time I brought home more in 1 week than I used to make in a month. I didn't celebrate. I didn't buy a flat screen or a new phone. I bought bulk asphalt, upgraded my torch, and fixed the brakes on the truck myself. I kept it quiet, especially around my family. Not out of shame, but because I knew they wouldn't care. To them, roofing was roofing. Tar was tar. It didn't matter if I had 10 jobs lined up or none at all. I was the one who didn't go to college, the one who could have done more with his life. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't see the potential in commercial roofing, the repeat contracts, the industrial parks popping up along the outskirts of town. They didn't know that companies paid serious money for reliability and safety, especially when it came to protecting their assets under 50,000 square feet of flat roof. They thought I was patching up sheds. I was building something. It wasn't glamorous. I didn't post pictures, didn't brag, but by the end of that first year, I had enough money saved to lease a proper trailer, stock real equipment, and hire a young guy named Cole to help me on bigger jobs. He was 21, strong-backed, green as grass, but eager. Together, we worked sunrise to sundown. No holidays, no complaints. The kind of work that leaves your skin burned and your clothes stiff from sweat. But when I handed Cole his first real paycheck, he looked at me like I just handed him a future. That meant more to me than any compliment I could have gotten at those Sunday lunches. Eventually, I registered the business. Precision Commercial Roofing. Simple name, serious work. I paid for the LLC with cash and picked up a pressure washer on the way home. That night, I sat in my driveway, looked at the paperwork, and realized something. I wasn't just doing this to prove them wrong. I was doing it to prove me right. By the end of my second year, I had a small crew, 2 commercial trucks, and a steady flow of contracts. Nothing fancy, no logos plastered on billboards, just good work passed by word of mouth from one property manager to the next. We specialized in flat commercial roofs, shopping centers, office parks, warehouses. It wasn't work you noticed unless it failed, but when you did it right, people remembered, and they paid well to never worry again. But at home, no one asked. Not once at those Sunday lunches did my brother say, "How's business?" Not even a polite, empty version of it. He'd talk about bonus structures and corporate retreats while I cut into dried chicken and kept my hands on my lap, still rough from the week. My dad sometimes asked if I was keeping busy, but he said it the same way he used to ask if the lawn was mowed. Just a chore, just something to check off. And my mom, she tried, I think. She always made a plate for me, wrapped up leftovers for later in the week. But when Evan and his wife started talking about their new kitchen remodel, I caught her glancing at my boots again. I knew what she was thinking. "Brent works hard," she'd sometimes say, like it was a defense, like hard work was all I had to offer. They didn't see the early mornings. They didn't see me climbing up icy ladders in January. They didn't see me managing payroll, scheduling crews, dealing with inspections, or negotiating with suppliers. They saw a man with tar on his shirt and dirt under his nails. And I let them, because explaining it would have felt like begging for approval. And I didn't need their approval. I needed time. Time to build. I still remember the week I landed my biggest job yet. A full resurfacing for a beverage distribution warehouse just outside the city. It was the kind of contract that could cover payroll for months and still leave room for growth. I was proud. Quietly proud. I even thought, for a moment, that I'd bring it up at lunch. Maybe show them the blueprint. Let them see that I was building something real. But that Sunday, Evan was already in the middle of a long story about his firm getting acquired and what it might mean for his title. His wife jumped in talking about private schools and new swim lessons for their daughter. And I just sat there, nodding, chewing, listening. Because they weren't interested in roofing. Not mine, not anyone's. They weren't interested in me unless I played along with the picture they'd already framed in their minds. So I stopped trying to fit. I stopped showing up in work clothes. I started wearing clean jeans, a button-up. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want to hand them any more excuses. If they were going to look down on me, they'd have to work harder for it. The thing is, you get used to being underestimated.
At first it burns, then it hardens, and eventually it becomes fuel. I didn't need their questions. I didn't need their praise. I had contracts lined up for the next 5 months. I had 3 guys working full-time and another 2 part-time. I had suppliers who called me by name and building managers who trusted me more than their own maintenance teams. And I had something they didn't. I had nothing to prove to anyone but myself.
It started like any other call. A property manager left a voicemail. Flat roof on a shipping center was leaking. Said the last company botched the torch work and walked off mid-job. The site was 15 minutes from town, just off the interstate. I drove out the next morning, brought Cole and Darren with me. We climbed the ladder and looked over the damage. Split seams, pooling water, cheap sealant already cracking. While the others measured and took photos, I stepped back, looked at the layout, and ran numbers in my head. 22,000 square feet, plus removal, torch-down membrane, flashing. 3-week job, maybe 4 if the weather turned. I quoted him fair. Not cheap, not inflated, just honest. 2 days later, he called back. "It's yours, Brent. You came recommended. Don't make me regret it." I didn't. That job changed everything. It wasn't just the size, it was the visibility. Trucks came in and out of that loading dock all day. Contractors saw us working. Drivers asked for cards. And by the second week, I had 2 more site managers asking for quotes while we were still finishing the first site. I invested every penny from that job right back into the business. Bought a secondhand flatbed, finally replaced the aging trailer, upgraded equipment, picked up commercial liability insurance. No more flying under the radar. Then I did something I hadn't done before. I started fixing up the property behind my house. There was a half-acre back there, mostly weeds, gravel, and an old shed that had been leaning since the Bush administration. I cleared it out, poured a slab, laid out plans for a modest workshop and material storage. Nothing fancy, just functional. Just mine. I didn't tell anyone. Every evening, after work, I'd change into clean clothes and spend a couple of hours laying out conduit, checking plumbing, cleaning tools. Saturdays, I'd run wiring. Sundays, I painted the walls myself. Quiet work, honest work. Eventually, I had a compact office in the front, racks for materials in the back, and space to park both trucks. I even put up a sign, "Precision Commercial Roofing," etched in metal, mounted on reclaimed wood. No flash, just presence. And I still parked my old truck out front, like always. That fall, we completed 11 projects in 9 weeks. I didn't take a single vacation day. I barely looked up. But every time I stepped onto a new rooftop and looked out across the city, I felt something building, not just under my feet, but inside me. Still, I said nothing at the family lunches. When Evan talked about his new investment portfolio, I nodded. When his wife complained about the noise in their neighborhood and hinted about moving somewhere more selective, I passed the potatoes. They didn't ask, so I didn't tell. They had their image of me. Calloused hands, stained boots, patchwork jobs. Let them keep it, because now I had something they couldn't see. Not just a business, a foundation. Not just income, momentum. And momentum is everything.
I hadn't planned on inviting them. Not really. I mean, I'd thought about it. Late at night, after long days, when the workshop lights hummed and the air smelled like hot rubber and paint, I'd look around at what I'd built and wonder what they'd say, or if they'd say anything at all. But it always felt pointless. Until that Sunday. It was a usual lunch. Dry roast, Evan bragging, his wife nitpicking, my father silent, my mother tired behind her eyes. Nothing had changed. Until, halfway through the meal, Mom asked quietly, "You've been busy lately, haven't you?" I paused. Evan snorted. "Roofing's always busy when the weather's good. It's not exactly rocket science." I kept chewing, didn't take the bait. But then Mom said, We haven't seen your place in years. Maybe we should stop by sometime." I looked up. Her tone wasn't accusing, just open, maybe curious, maybe trying. And before I could second-guess myself, I said, "You're welcome to come over after lunch, if you want." Evan raised an eyebrow. "Today?" I nodded. "Yeah, no pressure, just if you're up for it." There was a silence at the table. Not tense, just unexpected. "Sure," Mom said. "Why not?" I gathered my things, helped clear a few plates, then left ahead of them. I needed a few minutes, not to hide anything, just to breathe. When I got home, everything was already in place. I hadn't staged anything. I didn't need to. The house stood on its own. I'd remodeled it slowly, over time. New siding, energy-efficient windows, and a fresh coat of soft gray-blue paint. Inside, I'd knocked down a few walls to open the space. Nothing extravagant, just clean, thoughtful, quietly beautiful. Out back, the difference was undeniable. The gravel path led to the steel-framed workshop I'd built myself. The logo hung clean above the door, precision commercial roofing. The lot was organized, tools neatly stored, supply racks labeled, 2 work trucks washed and gleaming under the late afternoon sun. And beside it all, a modest garden, tomatoes, peppers, herbs, because I liked the routine of tending something small. When they arrived, I saw Evan's car slow as it turned onto my street. He parked behind my truck. They all got out. No one said anything at first. Mom looked at the new siding. Evan scanned the driveway, eyes narrowing when he saw the company trucks. His wife didn't speak. She was too busy taking in the modern walkway, the updated lighting fixtures, and the neat rows of planters along the fence. "You did all this?" Mom asked, almost whispering. "Every bit. Paid for it with roofing money." They followed me around back, still quiet, and when I opened the gate and stepped aside to let them through, I watched it happen. Their pace slowed. Evan's eyes moved from the trucks to the workshop to the neat piles of material. His jaw tightened. My father walked ahead, ran his hand along the smooth edge of the sign, said nothing, but nodded once. The kind of nod you wait your whole life for. And my mother, she just stood there, eyes glistening, hands folded. I didn't know. We never asked. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. They saw it now. The silence behind me said more than any words could. They stood just inside the gate, feet on gravel, eyes scanning every corner of the yard. My trucks, my building, my name on the sign. All of it. Real, clean, working. Built with black tar, burnt hands, and years of being the punchline at family dinners. No one moved at first. Then Evan stepped forward. He circled the workshop like he was inspecting it for flaws. I could see the thoughts behind his eyes, calculations, comparisons, disbelief. "So, this is your roofing thing?" he asked, voice low. I didn't flinch. "It's my company." He nodded once, but it wasn't admiration. It was the kind of nod people give when they realize they've underestimated you, badly, and don't know how to walk it back without swallowing pride. He glanced at one of the trucks, white, with clean lettering. "These new? Used, but well-maintained. Fully outfitted, paid in full." Behind us, my mom walked slowly toward the garden, brushing her hand across the basil leaves. "You did this? All of it?" I nodded. "With roofing." She looked at me then, not like the boy who hadn't finished college, not like the kid who showed up dirty and late to lunch, but like a man she finally saw. Inside the workshop, the floor was spotless. Tools hung neatly along the walls. Safety gear was stacked in bins. The smell of industrial sealant still lingered faintly from the job we'd finished Friday. Cole had left early that day to see his daughter's school play. I didn't stop him. That's the kind of place I was building, one where people mattered as much as product. Evan leaned against the doorway. You really did all this without loans? Without help? I looked him square in the eye. I did it while you were laughing at my boots. He blinked, caught off guard. No anger in my tone, no bite, just truth. For years, I'd kept my head down, taken the comments, smiled through the insults, because I wasn't building something to show off. I was building something to last. And now, they saw it. Not just the structure, not just the trucks or the tools. They saw the results of the hours I never talked about, the contracts I signed without celebration, the nights I came home too sore to stand but still went back out the next morning. They saw the man behind the work, and they had no idea what to do with that. My father walked into the office section of the building and stood quietly, taking it in. The old man had never been big on words, but when he came back out, he shook my hand. Not the stiff grip of obligation, but the kind of handshake that settles old accounts. He looked me in the eye and said just 2 words. You built. That was enough. Back at the gate, Evan's wife asked if I'd thought about expanding. I said maybe, but not for them, not for show. I didn't build this to prove them wrong. But now that they saw it, I wasn't about to apologize for proving myself right.
We stood in the yard a while. Nobody said much. The silence wasn't uncomfortable this time. It was different. It felt honest, like they were still trying to make sense of what they'd seen, of what they had ignored for so long. And honestly, I wasn't in a hurry to fill the air. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to shrink myself. I wasn't trying to explain, defend, or apologize for what I'd chosen to build with my own 2 hands. I just stood there, present, solid. My mom was the first to speak again. You've done well, Brent. We should have asked. We just thought. She trailed off, as if finishing the sentence would cost her more than she was ready to pay. I spared her the effort. I know what you thought. And I smiled. Not bitter, not smug, just free. Evan stayed quiet. He kept looking at the trucks, then at the gate, then at the garden. I could tell his world had tilted just enough to make him uncomfortable. Maybe he'd always needed to believe I was the one who fell short, so he didn't have to face his own corners left unbuilt. He muttered something about recalculating and said they needed to get back for a dinner reservation. His wife followed without a word. As they left, Mom stayed behind a few extra seconds. She looked up at the workshop, then back at me. I'm proud of you, she said, quietly. I just wish I'd said it sooner. I nodded. It means more now. She kissed my cheek and walked toward the car. Dad didn't say anything, but when he passed me, he clapped my shoulder once, firm, steady, and gave me that old, worn look of quiet respect. The same one he gave me when I fixed the tractor by myself at 16. The same one he gave me when I buried our dog with my own shovel, without being asked. That night, I stood out back long after they'd gone. The sun had dipped low. My trucks were parked side by side. The logo above the shop caught the last orange light of the day. There was nothing grand about it. No champagne, no dramatic moment of redemption. Just gravel underfoot, clean tools, and a calm I hadn't felt in years. They'd seen what I built. But more importantly, I didn't need them to anymore. That was the real victory. Not the gate, not the building, not the expression on Evan's face when he realized I didn't need his approval. The victory was internal, quiet, like the satisfaction after a job done right, when no one's looking and you're the only one who knows what it took to finish. I built my life the way I roof a structure, layer by layer, sealed tight, made to withstand storms.
And finally, I stood on solid ground, with nothing left to prove.
The Monday after they visited, I got up at 4:30 a.m. like always. No part of me wanted to sleep in, no celebration hangover, no feeling of I showed them. Just another quiet morning, another strong coffee, and another day at work. Because that's what this life is. People think success feels like confetti or fireworks, like one big explosion that makes everyone finally see you. But the truth is, if you're doing it right, success doesn't make noise. It feels like waking up early in a home you paid for, like starting the engine of a truck you earned, like walking into a workshop that didn't exist until you put it there. It feels like peace. That week, we started work on a medical warehouse roof. 38,000 square feet, foam insulation, bitumen seal. Tough job, long hours, 2 teams alternating shifts. I was up there with them, sweating side by side, sleeves rolled, torch in hand. Because I never started this to get off the roof. I started it to build something that mattered. And I still am. Cole got promoted. He's running a crew now. Darren's managing our bids. We've got interns from the trade school downtown coming through every few months. I tell them all the same thing. Don't let anybody decide your ceiling, especially not people who've never touched your tools. Most of them did it. Some have to learn the hard way. But I try to be the man I didn't have when I started. Not a savior, just someone who shows what's possible when you stop waiting to be invited to the table and start building your own. As for my family, we're better, I think. They don't make the same comments anymore. Evan doesn't talk down to me, not because he suddenly understands roofing, but because he finally understands that I'm not asking him to. Mom comes by sometimes with baked goods, walks around the garden, says things like, "Your hands did all this." And she's right. They did. These hands were once mocked for being dirty. Now they sign contracts, train crews, and build futures. Still rough, still calloused, but steady, reliable. The way I always wanted to be seen. The gate stays open now, not because I'm showing off, but because I've got nothing to hide. And if someone drives by and sees a guy in boots carrying a torch or a drum of asphalt, let them think what they want. I used to care. Now I just smile, because I know what's behind the gate. I know what it cost me to build, and I know I'm not done. There's more to grow, more to fix, more to prove. Not to them, not to anyone else, but to the man who sat at that lunch table all those years ago, swallowing every insult like it didn't matter. It mattered. But what I did with it mattered more. So yeah, my name is Brent McAllister. I lay roofing for a living. Not the kinds you see from the street, the kind that holds entire businesses together. The kind nobody notices until it fails. And mine doesn't fail.